Hey, this is Tom Wilmot. Welcome, Forex Fortune Hunters. In this video, we're going to follow up on our Super GMMA template, the one in Metatrader we shared with you a couple days ago, that comes from our book, Forex Power Surge on Amazon Kindle. Take a look at that when you get a chance. In this video, we're going to drill down even further and talk about how you can use the 5-minute and the 1-minute chart to scalp during the London Open and right on through the US Open, all the way up and through the New York Stock Exchange session, especially in the early morning hours New York time. So if you're in for getting those pips, join us. Hold on to your hat. We'll get started right after this. Okay, you fabulous fortune hunters, let's get started. This is a daily chart using our Super GMMA template. So not only can you use this template when you're interested in trading on a 5, 15, 30-minute time frame for intraday trading and scalping and so forth, as we'll get to in a minute. But check this out. You can also use it as a daily chart or 4-hour chart, and it gives you a very clear picture of what's going on. So notice what happened here on the daily chart of the pound yen. The pound began to catch a bid against the Japanese yen back in July. This was the time frame here. Notice what happened. We had our up arrow, and notice we have our Super GMMA EMAs here in the blue. We have our 12, 16, 20, and 24 EMA, which is our standard stock and trade. And notice the potential entries that you could pick up if you're just a longer term swing trader and looking for some pips on the higher time frame charts. Notice here, for example, we had a pullback into what we call the bands down around the 1620, and then we had a hold. We had a pull back on our MACD. We pulled back down with the stochastic. This is the signal line that follows the irregular stochastic that I've isolated in red here. So this is a potential entry right here, and the follow-up is true. We had this candle setup, the Morningstar kind of a setup here. Beautiful return, and so now we're off to the races on the pound yen, and that would be a great swing trade. But you don't have to do it that way. You can drop down and play the market on a daily or a weekly basis as well. Now, just to review, this medallion here is our signal that we've transferred the 12 and moved it above the 24. The medallion white indicates an upside move. The medallion red indicates a downside move. And just to be clear, those lines can stay in the middle here and give you no kind of actionable item. It's not until you get the arrow that you see the moving averages cross that place where the close of that medallion candle was positioning Zealander signal line. That comes from our book, published way back in 2015, still working great. Okay. Now the situation is, let's talk more about the scalping strategies that we were telling you about before. We'll drop down to the 15-minute and we'll move across here. Notice that we had a real good kick up in the pound yen at the beginning of the London session today. This is our blue line. Session times indicator is available to you in the Dropbox account, by the way. It will tell you when your broker's chart is lined up with the 3 a.m. open of the London session. I had 7 a.m. for the New York session, and then this is the 9:30 open of the New York Stock Exchange. So each one of these pairs will react slightly differently to these accounts than others. But notice here we had some movement in our 15-minute chart in the Asian session from 8 o'clock in New York up until 3 a.m. In New York. But notice the action really occurred yesterday, also Monday, in these sessions. Yesterday, it started out to really catch a bid in the beginning of the New York Stock Exchange account, and then we settled off at about 2000 hours is what I put in my signal line, and we have kind of a flat rest of the afternoon. Okay, let's get even more bold. Let's drop down to the 5-minute, and we'll move our chart over so we can see it. Here we are. We have the situation here where, once again, here's the London Exchange, the London opening of the London Exchange, 3 a.m. in Boston and New York. You'd have to be up pretty late or early if you were California, but you could conceivably trade this in the Asia a region for sure, if you have some patience and want to do it in the evening, for example, which is obviously the opposite of our 9 o'clock time here in New York. Now, the situation is as follows. Notice here, even on the 5-minute chart, we have a situation where we have the up candle. And if you're just trading the 5-minute chart, you don't want to be changing. Notice we had all that traditional, very typical pullback after the up candle here and the up arrow, a pullback into the lower range of the stochastic. We had the 5 white histogram bars followed by the pullback on the MACD, and then a continuation higher. Now, in this area here, you're going to use the Zelander signal line as your stop loss area. And notice on the 5-minute chart, with this up candle, as you pull back into the bands, you're going to find yourself, even if you go back all the way to the bottom of this Super GMMA cushion, that's only 8-9 pips. So the risk here is significantly lower than the profit potential, which you can see played out into the New York session. It's 79 pips. So 8 to get 79 is it's like a 10 times reward on your risk, and that's the way we like to play it. Now, if you were to pull into the bands later, you can see it's just kissing along the top of the 12. And a pullback of that sort is possible. But what you might also want to do is to get yourself into a situation where you use this line here. Let's pull it over here, and let's drop down to a 1-minute chart in case you're getting in late. Perhaps there's an opportunity for you to see. Notice here, this is this pullback we see again, a pullback here, and then a reverse with the first white up candle here. So let's move our line over to that first white candle, and notice even if you're in late with this pullback, the cushion is available to you. The risk on a trade such as this is down into this area, which is 5.5 pips, with a reward here in this first move of 34. So even on the 1-minute chart, you're in really good shape. Now, notice that we have had our move. We have had an expected move of more than the average daily trading range up into this area, so you can't count on it just continuing to fire higher, even in these unprecedented times. But notice that we did have another pullback into the bands here prior to the 7 o'clock hour, a nice pullback to this area. If you'd like to be very, very, very patient and wait for something like this, you can. Notice that you can also decide that you'd like on this particular, if you were to trade this one here instead, you might want to put your stop loss just below the low of this candle. You would have gotten stopped out here, but your loss would have been 3, 4, 5 pips, nothing major. And then you can see the reversal again here going into the 7 o'clock hour. And that nice move here, if you wait until the candle reaches back up above, the closing value reaches back up above the 12, you see this move here is another 28 pips. So even if you get stopped out once in a while with a small risk, you're going to be able to re-enter and have a much more significant opportunity to keep your equity curve moving up and to the right. Now, here things are getting a little more difficult and challenging. This is a situation where, as we pointed out, we've had a very big move. We've got a double topping situation, maybe triple topping. We have a move down on the medallion, and then we have a continuation here with the red arrow to the downside. Notice how on the 1-minute chart we pull right back to this, but we'd want to switch around now probably and wait for the 5-minute chart to take over. And in fact, you can see here that this was the move down, but I'm not sure I'd take it quite here yet as our Super GMMA has not completely turned over. This is a better place maybe to get involved in this trade. And you can see here, even in the late part of the New York session, headed into the afternoon, we do have a situation where we can say, okay, here's our down arrow. Let's put our vertical line right next to the down arrow, drop down to our 1. There's a signal from TradeStation coming at us here. Here we go over here, and here it is again. Notice this pullback into the bands on the 1-minute chart. And here's our place for the stop loss right above this candle. And so now when we pull down, our risk is limited to this particular area here, which is 8 pips. And already we've had 27 to the downside as some profit taking has occurred during this afternoon, early afternoon New York session. Okay, guys, that's it. Now, try to combine your 5-minute and your 1-minute during these very active times. Try not to do it later in the afternoon. Try to be when you get to kind of the closing areas and nobody else is at the table here with their cash in hand. The Asians are asleep. The Londons have headed out for dinner. Only some late breaking Americans here in the late afternoon session. And on top of that, your spreads increase. So keep track of your spreads. Don't get into the market when it's slowed down. Try to avoid that. Use the high intensity times to do your trading. Hope that helps, guys. See you next time. Don't forget to check the descriptions. Subscribe to our channel if this is helpful. And give us a like. Don't be stingy. Thanks a lot, guys, for watching. See you next time.